Hello, listeners, and welcome to the Downright Upright Show, the place to go to hear out loud and proud what Minnesotans are thinking. And I am your host, Philip Anthony. Thank you for choosing to join us today, and I hope you are all doing fantabulous. Are you doing fantabulous
I
today?
am.
Wonderful. Fantabulous is my little word. It means fantastic and fabulous mixed together. My special guest today is Dr. Patricia Kent, a retired professor of voice at St. John's University and the College of St. Benedict. She received the coveted Schussler Prize in Voice, and she has over 40 oratorio and concert works in her repertoire. Dr. Kent has also performed as a soloist with the St. Paul Chamber Orchestra, and she has appeared in many other concerts, operas, and recitals, too many to enumerate here, and she even recorded 2 CDs. Wow, awesome sauce. Welcome, Dr. Kent, to the Downright Upright Show.
Well, thank you, Philip. You can call me Pat.
Okie doke, I shall. I'll call you Pat. With all my guests, I usually like to find out their beginnings. That's just, lay a foundation, and from there you can understand the person better. Where were you born and raised?
I was born and raised on a farm near Bruton, Minnesota.
Bruton. Where is that?
Straight west on Highway 55, about 100 miles. It's in the middle of dairy country.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. And was it a farm, actual farm? Where
Yes,
you had
yes.
cows and chickens and all that
Yeah,
stuff?
we always had dairy cows, and we had chickens for a while, we had pigs for a while. Raised, cash crops like corn, oats, soybeans, things like that.
Wow, I never knew that. See?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, so how old were you? And can you remember the first time you realized you had an amazing soprano singing voice? And can you tell our listeners where this happened? So did it happen at home or in church, on stage? Like, when did you realize?
Well, I'm the oldest in my family, the oldest of 8, actually. And I had an aunt she was probably the one who encouraged me to sing the most. My dad had a beautiful voice, just really stunning.
Oh, he did?
Irish tenor voice, yeah. And
How about Mom?
Mom she would sing once in a while, but she was pretty shy around
Okay.
around my dad and me probably too. But I know how old I was. I was 5 years old, and I sang My Wild Irish Rose for a St. Patrick's Day program in Clontarf, Minnesota, which is even smaller than Bruton.
Oh, good.
That's where my parents come from.
And where was this? On where?
Clontarf, Minnesota.
On a stage or at home or?
It was at the town hall / church hall. It was all one thing. This little tiny town of Clontarf, which I have so many happy memories of growing.
Were you shy
spending time there?
Growing up? Or did you know you were a little bit of a
Yes
ham?
and no. Yes and no. I was shy. Yes and no.
Oh, yes and no.
I mean-
Okay. My Wild Irish Rose.
Yeah.
Well, that's cute.
Yeah.
And as a follow-up to that question, did you ever do any classical stuff growing up? Like, or was it always just pop music?
I started singing. I started taking piano in 2nd grade. And then at some point in there, I took some voice lessons from my piano teacher, although she really wasn't a voice teacher, truth be told. And I would sing for a lot of hometown PTA meetings, or I sang pop songs. Dionne Warwick was my favorite in high school. And I'd sing those songs for like talent shows and homecoming and
Walk On By.
I think that was one. Do You Know the Way to San Jose?
Oh, of course, yeah.
But I took some lessons already in high school, some voice lessons from Mrs. Ralshoot in Alexandria. And I think I always, probably from a real young age, knew I wanted to sing.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Can you remember the first time you sang in front of an audience, and what piece of music did you sing? So in other words, officially, like...
Oh, officially. Well, I'm going to... What? Official first? Well, that would have been that...
High school, maybe?
Well, those, the things I talked about in doing stuff for various pageants and contests and stuff in high school.
Did you ever do competitions, or this was just fun, just for fun?
No, I did. I did the county fair talent competitions, which I'm now a judge of.
Yeah, I know.
At the state fair. But yeah, I
Were
did
you
those.
were you the judge this year as well?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
cool. Was it fun?
Not the judge. There are lots of us.
Judge.
But
Yeah,
a
yeah,
judge.
yeah.
Yeah.
Was it
yeah.
fun to
It's
do?
always fun. It's always fun.
Could you
I
tell the
learned stuff.
listeners who won?
Actually, I can only tell you who won my nights.
Oh, okay.
But there was one singer that won one night that I taught, but the other winner was a dancer. So and they always have a 3-judge panel. So there's always somebody who knows something about dance, because that is not my area of specialty. I'll tell you that.
All right. Not even
Yeah.
classical dance?
No, I'm starting to get better though. I'm
Okay.
starting to know the difference because I've done it a while.
Could you
Yeah.
do the minuet?
No, exactly.
Anyway, but so did you ever consider singing in different genres of music?
I've always been interested in other genres. You know,
What's one that's out of your bailiwick that you haven't done or want to do, I guess?
R&B.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Now what would be the challenge to do an R&B song, do you think?
There's so much.
It's not the range, because you definitely have the range.
No,
but-
it's not a range thing. It's a style thing. You know, it's like, well, can I segue a little bit? Because I think I've become, I was always trained to be a really good reader of music.
Right.
And I've gotten better over the years, and it's my entree into a new piece is reading. And with so many styles of music, that's not the entree. The entree is listening, right? And
Correct,
I've done
yeah.
a few things more recently where I took a class in popular song, and I took one in Irish song, and that's all listening. You learn that by listening. You learn the style by listening.
Yeah.
And at first kind of threw me for a loop, but then I realized I really kind of like it, and
It happens.
Yeah,
It happens
yeah.
quite often with, for example, the one that hits me is Dusty Springfield.
she's perfect.
I
yeah.
remember when she started with her brother in the Springfield. She was a folk singer, and one day she was walking down the block and she heard a song, an R&B song from the '60s. I don't recall which one it was. And she goes, "That's what I want to do now." And she went. She did total 180, and went from folk music to R&B, and she was considered white soul in
exactly.
the 60s.
Sure.
She was
Absolutely,
blue.
she was.
Well, they called it blue-eyed soul, I guess was the official
Like the Righteous
term.
Brothers, yeah.
Like the Righteous Brothers, correct. So so if Dusty could do it, I think you could do it, Pat. That's what I say. Because I can sing pretty much everything except R&B. I think I have trouble with that. I mean, I could do certain songs, but it would be in more of a poppy kind of way.
Yeah.
How about country music? Have you ever tried to sing country music?
No.
Oh, uh-oh. Did I hit a nerve?
No, there's certain artists I like, but it doesn't draw me in. It doesn't draw me in the way.
Not even the old time cut, like the people
Yeah,
we
no,
grew up with,
Patsy Cline.
like Glenn Campbell and people like that. And
I love Patsy Cline. Everybody loves Dolly. I love Dolly.
Yeah, Dolly.
I love Johnny Cash, but I can't emulate that. I mean, I don't have that quality in my voice. I think I'm more suited to singing jazz. Actually.
I would love to hear you do Jolene one day. I would. You got to try.
Maybe.
Because that would be perfect for your voice, I think, because it's got some pitches, high.
Well,
high-
range-wise,
Yeah,
she's
yeah.
closer to my range.
Yeah. So never know.
Yeah.
I mean, everybody loves Dolly. I mean, who
Yeah.
doesn't love her? I mean, she's a philanthropist. She's a great person, and she's
Right.
got a great voice.
Yeah.
And a great actress. She's pretty much an all-around.
I know. And just lovable.
Just like you. Anyway, so so R&B would be the genre you would like to
yeah.
try. Anything else?
Jazz. I've dabbled in jazz.
Any songs you want to bring up that you did, jazz numbers that you can remember singing?
Harlem Nocturne. When I did the class at
wow.
McNally Smith, I got assigned that. Judy Reiner and Lori Dokken assigned me that. And I thought, this is so right up my alley. Oh, so great. was so great. I had so much fun doing that.
Yeah, yeah. I think, what's her name? Peggy Lee stuff would be great for you.
Love her.
Peggy Lee. Oh my
Oh
God,
my
try
gosh.
doing some Peggy Lee.
Her voice is so much lower, though. I don't know.
Oh, is she?
Maybe.
She's
She
got
that
some-
smoky quality, it's just, I love her.
But you could sing an alto range, can't you?
I can get down there. It's harder to live down there.
Well, maybe
My voice has moved down for sure.
smoke a few cigarettes.
Never.
Never.
No.
No way, no. Anyway, but that's great. Were there any singers, directors, collaborators who you came in contact with personally who were your greatest mentors and who gave you the most inspiration as a performer? And can you talk about them for the listeners today?
I never had a bad teacher. That's honest to God truth. I've
Can you
never
remember
had a bad-
one teacher that really took you under their wing and gave you that inspiration?
Sheila Schoenbrunn, when I was in New York, when I was doing my first grad degree, she actually created opportunities for me. I mean, her husband was kind of the impresario of these early music groups, and he hired me, and some of my first professional gigs came out of that, and I kind of went from being a grad student right into singing some pretty high-profile engagements.
What was do you remember your first professional gig that you did, that he led you towards?
Yeah, we did the play of Herod and the play of Daniel at Kennedy Center, the National Cathedral of St. John the Divine, and Princeton, McCarter Theater at Princeton. And, it was like just all of a sudden you're doing these big gigs, and we would...
And they were challenging gigs, weren't they?
Yeah, it was really, that was a pivotal thing for me, actually, because it gave me a lot of confidence.
When you first started, did you have butterflies? Was it really tough to get out in front of all those people, or were you a natural that was?
I would be nervous in anticipation of doing something, but when I was on stage, I get into the zone.
A lot of I can't tell you how many times I've heard that from different artists that have said, "Oh, when I go out there, I feel going to vomit before I go out on the stage."
Well, I don't think I've had some performance anxiety in later years, but I didn't when I was younger, and but it was more like this bubble of anticipation, I think. But there's a nervous element to that, no question.
Yeah. But once you step out there and you open your mouth, you say, "Yes, I did it."
Yeah, and I think too, as I've gotten more experienced, I'm not afraid of audiences much more. I'm like, I'm here to tell you something. I'm here to tell you something that means something to me, and it's more direct. I'm more about the communication than about proving myself. Let's put it that way. Mm-hmm.
And can you tell us, like, ever one particular performance that sticks out in your mind that you remember, and the anticipation being so scary, I guess, where you kept you up at night, where it was so challenging for you, or was it again everything just came pretty?
I remember when I was doing competitions when I was in college, and I was much more nervous than I got to be later, and I think, just give me a
Experience
shot.
is the
I
best
need a shot of something, then I'll be fine.
Liquor?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
And it worked. But then, no, I didn't do that later. But early on, I remember thinking, I just need to calm down.
Yeah. Well, a lot of people have said that. I mean, they get this terrible feeling coming over them before they step on the stage, and they're like, "Oh my God!"
What's the worst that could happen?
You blow it.
Yeah.
I mean, I've seen artists go on the stage and really, I mean, you and I had gone to a concert. Remember that particular one I'm talking about?
Sure do.
I'm not going to mention who it is,
No.
but there, as we mentioned, the asparagus was overcooked, right?
Precisely.
So tell the listeners what that means so they get an idea. That's an inside joke.
I said, we were listening to somebody, and I said, please come up with something to tell me when I have to stop singing. And my friends came up with the asparagus is overcooked. But I thought, yeah, you're right. Nobody wants to touch that. Forget it. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, there's a few artists that I could say that about that are still
yeah.
around, and they, I guess just their name alone, draws a crowd. But some of them need to really hang it up, and maybe. I don't know, just do some autograph signings or something like that. I don't know. Anyway, as a follow-up to the question I just asked you, were there any famous singers who you admired before becoming a professional singer, who, after hearing them sing, inspired you to either become a singer or who you wanted to emulate?
I remember this so clearly. So I went to St. Ben's as an undergrad, and the famous mezzo-soprano Dame Janet Baker came to St. Ben's. And it was in the middle of the winter, in the middle of a snowstorm, and the drifts were like 3 feet high. And we trudged out to the Benedict Art Center, my friends and I, and only about 100 people were there, maybe not even. It was a very thin crowd because it was a terrible night. Mm-hmm. And I was kind of embarrassed that, there weren't many people there. And it was, I mean, I remember my friend Jane and I think we were in tears from beginning to the end. It was just such amazing singing. It was so soulful. It was so beautiful. It was so...
What was her name again?
Janet Baker.
Janet Baker. And was she opera? She was an opera singer, basically.
Opera and a lot of other stuff. More oratorio than opera. Some opera, though. And... I mean, if anything solidified my desire to do that, was listening to her.
Right.
As an undergraduate, as a baby.
Have you ever seen any opera singers like Leontine Price or people like that?
Leontine was fabulous.
You did see her?
Yeah, at Carnegie Hall. Yeah, when I lived in New York. Yeah. Yeah.
And you got a ticket? I thought in those days it was really hard.
And we, she did 8 encores, all arias.
Oh my goodness.
And people were throwing roses at the stage. It was amazing.
Yeah, she was
one of my top artists of all time. Mm-hmm. Like when I grow up, I want to be like that.
Leontine.
Yeah.
Who else did you see
who else did? Well,
in a concert?
What did I see in concert? I mean, sometimes you'll hear somebody in concert and you'll think, that wasn't. But I will say.
Because Leontine, I mean, everybody would have died to see.
The thing is, I have these idols, singer idols that are from the older times, like Rosa Poncel, who was an Italian-American, Renata Tebaldi was Italian. Those are the singers I listen to, and I think, now that is peak beautiful singing.
Right.
Yeah.
My mom, when she was alive, gave me the love of music. Mm-hmm. My family is very musically, and I remember her growing up. She would play a lot of records on, and I would listen. And there was a singer that she loves. His name was Jimmy Rosselli. He never got the credit that he deserved.
The fame, yeah.
The voice on this man. I mean, he sang in Napolitano.
Oh, cool.
Which is a dialect of Italian.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
He sang Napolitano folk songs, basically, and love songs, but with an operatic style. Mm-hmm. But notes that, would throw you off. I mean, I would suggest my listeners, check him out if you like that kind of music, especially.
Yeah, no, Pavarotti did that too. He did a recording of Neapolitan folk songs. And I remember listening to that, and on the cover of it, he's wearing like a blue work shirt. And it's well,
he is Napolitano, isn't he?
Yeah. Well, he's from Modena.
Oh, okay.
His dad was a baker. In fact, can I have one tiny little sidebar?
Yeah.
There's this recording you can find online of him singing Panis Angelicus in the cathedral, and with his dad. And it's just the most touching thing.
Yeah,
it's
I think I've seen that.
It's just...
His father had a great voice, yeah.
Yes, and he wasn't, of course, as accurate as Pavarotti, and you can hear him kind of defer to his father. It's a really, really inspirational. It's an inspirational recording to me to watch, not just to listen to it, but to watch it.
Did you ever see him sing?
I did in Central Park. Yep, nice. Again in Central Park. It was Rigoletto. And my friends and I got my friends from work who were not opera people at all, but I talked them into going to hear him, and we thought we were getting there early, and we were parked by porta potties, But we got to hear him sing, and he did La Donna Mobile, and he had
God.
and he had the fishing hat that he wore for the informal concerts. He was just like a working man. You know what I mean? That was really an event.
Nessun Dorma he did too, right?
Yeah.
That was a different
Trento,
opera.
yeah.
What about Placido? Did you ever see Placido Domingo?
I didn't see him live. No, I saw Sutherland live.
Carreras?
No.
No. Well, those were the three, I think, when I was growing up, that were pretty up
sure.
there,
Absolutely.
as far as the men. And as far as the women, what was her name? There was one particular one that her name is escaping me right now.
Well, Joan Sutherland was big at that time.
Joan, yep.
And Shirley Verbett, who I did see. And trying to think who else. Oh, Ellie Ameling wasn't really an opera singer, but did a lot of art song, and she was, I really admired her singing. So, I was in New York in the 70s, so
right.
we used to go and get standing
So was
room.
I.
We used to get standing room at the Met and then kind of case the joint and see if we could
But we didn't
go up
know each
closer.
other.
I know, I'm so
It would
sorry.
have been sad, yeah.
That would have been fun.
Would have been fun, I mean.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's go on to students now that you've had. Was there a particular student or students who you took under your wing and who today are very successful musicians in their field? Or is there a story about a particular student you would like to talk about?
Well, I want to say I think my students, the ones that I end up being friends with, which is kind of more important to me in a way.
I think I know a couple.
They kind of self-select, I mean, they kind of select, and I just had lunch with a student today who was one of my favorite students who graduated, I think, 5 years ago. And she's trying to, make her way in music. And I was telling you earlier about a student of mine who was an outstanding student who was actually killed in Chicago, which was just really tragic.
In a car accident?
No, a victim of gun violence. It was.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we don't want to, put any restrictions on gun sales. We just want everybody and their mother to buy a gun. It's unfortunate that other countries, you basically have to jump through fiery hoops to get to be a gun owner.
Well, I think that if you've lost, when I lived in New York, I had a very good friend who was killed in gun violence, and I think that kind of marks you for life, right? It marks you for life. And
absolutely. My full disclosure, my father was killed by someone who shouldn't have had a gun, and that's another story in itself.
And I just wonder, with some people, if it takes losing someone close to you to see that we got to do something.
I think that's what it takes sometimes,
and
unfortunately.
I just don't understand. To me, that's a lack of empathy. That drives that debate, which it's just shocking to me. I mean, I think I remember that day as plain as day. It's just like etched into my memory. And I think once that happens to you, you can never unfeel it. You can never unsee it.
I mean, other countries where they've had, shootings of children, for example, like in, Parkland and all these, Uvalde, they immediately, gathered together and said, we have to do something about this. And they did. I don't know what's making us different, that we can't look at it. And then it's the same people that say, quote unquote, they're pro-life, which to me is a joke. I mean, if you're pro-life, you would want to save your children and kids going to school, not allowing 18-year-old snot-nosed kids just walking into a store, picking up an AR-15, which is an offensive weapon. It's not a defensive weapon.
Correct.
If somebody's attacking you, you don't need an AR-15. I'm sorry. It's a gun that people use to be offensive, to attack another person and do away with their body completely. They can't even identify you when
I
you're
know.
shot with those guns. So what do you think about that? What do you think the reasoning is? But why are we like this in this country?
I think, well, I have this perspective from being, growing up on a farm where all my family hunted and still hunt, and they love it, and it's a very big part of their lives.
Absolutely.
And
Hunting is great.
and my other experience in, living in inner cities for most of my life and seeing the effects of gun violence. And so I just keep coming back to, I was thinking about this, this political divide stuff like that. It's compassion and empathy that we have to relearn. You have to relearn to put yourself,
bingo. That's exactly what it is.
Put yourself in somebody else's shoes to see,
To feel pain from that
and
some other person.
to consider the other side rather than this intractable position that is,
Yes.
my way or the highway. I mean,
Yes.
and the answer is always compassionate.
Yep. And it's unfortunate. Anyway, so what was going back to your career again, what was the one performance in your life that you are the proudest of? Can you remember one particular show or concert or oratorio or
There's a lot.
something
There's a
that
lot, Philip.
you had like people standing for 20 minutes or something that you really were so proud of? I'm sure you had a lot of standing ovations, but can you remember one?
I'll just talk about a few. I'll try to limit myself, but Cantata 202 with the Bach Society and stellar soloists. Amazing violinist, amazing oboe player. And the conductor, my friend, was just like chill. He would just let us take it and go. And I thought, oh my God, this is like flying. And then actually my Carnegie Hall French program, that was really a peak experience.
That must have been so
That was a big
gobsmacking
experience.
to you. I mean, to
Yeah.
be standing even on that stage.
Yeah, so it was the recital hall, I got to say. It was a Carnegie
Oh,
recital.
okay.
So that's the smaller hall, but it's a jewel box of a hall. And it was something I had worked long and hard to prepare for. And my friends were there, and I just felt like I'm the luckiest person. I'm the luckiest person to be able to do this.
Yeah.
And
Your talent is obvious. I mean, I've heard you sing plenty of times, and unfortunately, the audience hasn't. But you have CDs.
I do.
And maybe we could talk about that then, how people can maybe find. Is there a way? Are they available or
Just talk to me.
talk to you?
Yeah, talk to me.
Okay, talk to you. All right. Anyway, so as of today, you are retired from teaching at the University of St. John's and the College of St. Benedict. However, by the way, St. Benedict is the girls' side of the school. Just so
Women's,
well,
Philip.
okay, women, ladies. St. John's. Well, I always said girls because they're young, and anybody young to me is a girl. It's somebody that's older is a woman. So,
There you go.
And I'm 62 years old. So
Yeah.
what do I know? Anyway, however, you do currently teach at Augsburg and McAllister.
Correct.
Right. And do you think it's your love of music that's so strong that it's difficult for you to completely retire, sever from that love of music? And are you teaching the same courses that you taught in St. John's?
I'm still teaching voice, and
So basically it's the same course,
pretty
right?
much, yeah. And I think I just love working with young people. I really do. I just think it makes me young. It keeps me young to work with young people.
No,
It
I
keeps
do too.
I keep the brain cells are firing, and I just, I think I can see over the years that I'm helping shape lives, and I think that's important. It's not just voices. It's at that age, when we're talking with older students, really it is a professional relationship. But at this age, there's so much they're trying to figure out, and it's.
Is this an adult education class you're teaching at Augsburg? And,
No.
Or it's a
no.
regular course?
No, I mean my private students. That's
I
a
see what
different
you're
thing.
saying. Okay.
But at that age, there's so much identity stuff that's going on, and just where am I going in life, and you're a woman that, the door closes and I suppose, I remind them of mom or maybe even grandma, no, whatever. But,
Yeah, that's what I feel the same way too.
It's not like I'm there to teach them voice, but stuff happens, and I've been able to be a guide for people, I think.
I'm going to go off on a tangerine
Yeah.
here. Can I go
Okay.
off on a tangerine?
Absolutely.
I think what would be difficult for me to be a voice teacher, and this is just me, and you can, tell me what you think, would be having a student who is really, really, really into being a singer, and they open their mouth and they sound like nails on a chalkboard, and you don't know how to say, I think you should try something else. I mean, has that ever happened? Or what do you do in a case like that? Is there any, I don't know.
I would say, okay, so I
That would make me nuts.
I always taught class voice, and class voice is not for majors, and these are people who just have, they have a love for music, and the talent level is all over the map, and God darn it, I liked it. Because you know what it is? They're not neurotic. You don't have to deal with neuroses, which singers are kind of neurotic. I hate to admit it, they're kind of neurotic.
Okay.
And these, there was just like always such a good energy in that class. It didn't really, nobody was preparing to win Idol or anything,
Well, yeah.
I mean, there were, it was just something I got such a kick out of, because they were so fresh, and so
But don't
game. They were game to try anything.
So they don't realize maybe that they don't have that instrument that they need to sing, or is there a way to bring that out, or maybe?
I think I can make anybody better. I mean, that sounds really arrogant, but I really do.
No, that's wonderful. I like to hear that.
And
actually.
I think they got better. The kids I worked with got
Oh, really?
better. No, I'm not saying they're ready to win any competitions. I'm just saying
I was going to say
it's
that.
a way to gain confidence, in being in front of people, which a lot of people have to do in their work lives. And we always had a performance component at the end, and I'd tell them to invite their friends, come in and listen to them sing, and this was going to be memorized and performed like it was the real deal. And, I can't remember if I already told. I think of one kid.
Okay.
Was-
But you could just.
He wanted to be a major, and I
Okay.
thought, this is never going to work. This is never going to work. And basically, he was so withdrawn. He was so withdrawn, so shy. And I was trying to make him more comfortable, and I said, can you think of a place that you relocate yourself in your head, a place that you would feel comfortable singing? And he goes, my room? And I thought, I don't know what to do.
My room. Okay.
And other words where nobody can hear. I mean, it's just, you can't.
Yeah, I get
yeah,
it. Yeah.
yeah,
I mean, I was told at a very young age that I had a good voice. I was.
You do have a good voice.
Thank you. I had a better voice. I think now, as I've gotten older, my breath control is probably not as good as it was before. But at the same time, I don't care. I got to a point where I thought, you know what? I don't care if I make it in that, because that's not the issue. To me, it's enjoyment. I do it for fun. I mean, if they didn't pay me a dime, I wouldn't care, because I like to go to karaoke and get out there and.
Been to karaoke with you.
Yeah, you have, yeah, and you sang as well. I'm trying to remember the song you sang. Oh, wasn't it an association song?
Aquarius.
Oh, the Fifth
Fifth
Dimension.
Dimension.
Yeah. That's pretty high, that song. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And you did a great job, from what I remember. Well,
It just goes on too long. That's the problem with that song.
Well, Let the Sun Shine.
Yeah, it takes too long.
You have to cut some of that part out,
yeah.
But I just think if you enjoy it, do it. You know what I mean? You don't have to be great. That's what I love about karaoke, because there's people there that they couldn't carry a tune in a paper bag. But
that.
they get up there and they're smiling and laughing and
It's life affirming,
having
right?
exactly.
Yep.
It's fun, and life's too short to not have fun. So I would recommend karaoke to anybody out there. Don't say you can't do it. Just do it. Just try it, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Anyway, now, the end is near. No, it's not yet. We have more to go. Now we've come to the part of the show I like to call the shift.
We're there.
It has an F in it, shift. Yes. I always tell my listeners that they find that funny because it sounds like I'm saying, yeah, you have to pronounce the F strong. Shift. Yes.
Beautiful.
Where I shift the questioning away from your career and into your opinion of current events. How's that sound?
Sounds fine.
Beautiful. Now, as of the taping of this show, the big news story is the forced busing of migrants. I'm sure you've heard of that.
I sure have.
From Florida, Texas, and Arizona to northern cities who tend not to demonize migrants. As a Catholic yourself, what is your opinion of the way these red state governors have treated these human beings who are trying to escape violence and terror in their home countries? Now, before you answer the question, I just want the listeners to understand what's going on here. These are people who have come to the border to seek asylum, which is every country in the world has that law. It's a worldwide phenomena. If you feel that your life's in danger or they're going to kill you or there's some unrest in your country and you don't feel safe, you can go to the border of a country you want and seek asylum. That's just the way it is. It's not. I'm not even blowing smoke in anybody's face. This is the way it is. However, these are people that were approved for asylum, so they're now legal in a quote unquote way until their cases comes up before a judge. So they're already here and they're legal and they went through the process and they're being treated like cattle. They're pretty much saying, okay, we're going to send you away. We know, and they're lying to them by saying, we're going to give you a job and we're going to give you money and we're going to do this for you and that for you, lying through their teeth to get these people onto the bus to send them to a state where they have no idea where they are or who's there or anything. So, what is your opinion of this? Is it humane? Is it a human thing or an American thing to do?
It's not, but I was watching the Ken Burns program about the Holocaust last night, and specifically, there was talking about the Jews who tried to emigrate to America to escape Nazi Germany, and the door was closed, and there was a lot of political reasons the door was closed, and I thought, for a nation of immigrants. We are a nation of immigrants. I'm from immigrant stock. You're from immigrant stock. Most of the people I know.
Except the Native Americans.
Yeah, most of the people I know are immigrant stock. And I'm like, it's such a dearth of compassion. These people, these human beings are being used to make a political point as a political stunt.
Yeah, that's what it is.
DeSantis, who has, presidential ambition, is
and
using
Abbott.
Using real people to make their political points, and it's to me, it's disgusting. And we also call ourselves a Christian nation, and it's like there's none of the major religions, they all have at their base compassion. That's supposed to be our
welcome the stranger. Wasn't that in the Bible? Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It's true in any and I just
you're speechless. I know, me
no,
too.
I'm not going to be speechless. I'm gonna say this.
Okay.
DeSantis says, and we send them up north, they're losing their minds. Actually, they're not. Actually, what they're doing is mobilizing to help people.
Yeah. Did you see the love that they're giving these people?
I mean, it was like, no, actually, you are saying something that is not happening.
Yeah.
They're figuring out.
They didn't even expect these people, and they still helped them out.
There's absolutely no process. It's just a stunt. And the actual reaction from the places they're sending them is, we will help you. we will help you.
Yeah.
And I think that's what is just so striking to me is people who say that they're people of faith, and you don't have to be a person of faith. You can just be decent. You can be a secular humanist who,
Just be a person.
recognizes that there are human beings in need.
But Pat, this is what burns my rear. You'll hear people on the other side who say, well, my ancestors came here at Ellis Island and they went through the process and everything was just fine. But they don't realize they had to cross an ocean.
It wasn't easy for them. And
they went on an island and the process. These people are on our continent. They're not across the ocean where they have to come on a boat and come over, So it's the nearest country where they can find asylum is where they're going to go.
Yeah, and they were talking about this last night, and saying that there were very liberal immigration quotas until the 1920s because they needed it for the expansion of the United States, and they needed it for labor, and they needed it for people who fought in the Civil War and stuff like that. I mean, they were liberal until there was a very anti-immigrant sentiment, which was against any immigrants who were not Northern European. That was basically the bar line, right? Mm-hmm. And there was definitely a racist component to the quota systems. And the answer to that, I think, is the trouble is that the laws haven't been updated or modernized or looked at in since Johnson. I might have that wrong. I'm not exactly sure. Maybe Reagan. Not sure.
He gave amnesty to the aliens.
That's
who,
right. That's right.
I called them migrants because that's what they are.
But it needs to be looked at. The whole system is, it hasn't been modernized or updated.
Exactly. It had the Democrats and the Republicans have to sit down like adults, right, which they're not, and talk about
what's realistic.
What's realistic? What can we do?
And what's compassionate.
And what's compassionate. And I shouldn't say every. Most economists have said, because we have such a dearth of employees in this country, there's help wanted signs all over. The unemployment rate is 3.6 or something like that. Never been as low as it is today.
Right.
And still, as you'll hear Americans say, send them back, send them back. Who's gonna wash your dirty dishes at your restaurant? Who is gonna clean your toilets in a hotel or a nursing home? Yep. Who is gonna be I can't think of other things, but there's a myriad of things that they do that picking crops, for example, in the hot sun. There are so many things they do that we don't do. So if we didn't have these people to do it, do you know how much? That's why we probably have inflation, I'm thinking, because nobody wants to do anything that we need. Mm-hmm. So in the long run, I think admitting people into the country legally, giving them work visas. If you don't want them to vote, because it's all political, they don't want them to vote. That's the whole thing.
You can't vote till you're a citizen anyway, so what's the point?
Well, yeah, so then maybe we should just give them a work visa. And that you can't vote if you have a work visa. So things like that where we can help our country and give these people an out where they can,
a path.
Yeah, an out where they can get out of the situation they're in and into a safer situation, and maybe eventually down the road become a citizen and be the next doctor who cures cancer, or you know what I mean. I mean, we have to open up our minds and our hearts and be humans again in this country. I think we're losing that. I think the Voldemort, our last leader, I think he did something to some of the people in this country. I can't explain it. I'm not a psychologist, but he made them rougher around the edges than they used to be. Don't you agree? Or
I think he touched a nerve with people that, oh my gosh, I was having I was at the state fair and having a beer with Nicole and my daughter and some of her friends, and I was talking to one of her friends, and he said, what Republicans have done is they successfully weaponize emotion. So if you have a resentment towards the fact that your life isn't the way it is, your life isn't the way you want it to be, or if you have a certain prejudice, or if you, I guess I get back to resentment, that they have successfully weaponized those emotions so that you're looking at somebody else and they're the problem.
So you think he validated those negative feelings and made them okay?
Absolutely, 100%.
Yeah. Well, I speaking of the state fair,
Racism.
well, duh. But speaking of the state fair, you and I went to the state. I actually saw you there,
right.
shortly, but
I
I said hi. If you didn't notice, there were two booths, not one, two booths that were attacking the governor Walz.
Yep.
Two booths. They had to have two booths, and then they had, of course, what's his name,
Jensen?
Jensen, yeah, I would call him Jennings. I don't know why. A Jensen booth. So you have that booth to attack the governor, and two other ones, and the things they were writing on those booths, like he killed Minnesotans, he abused our children because he put masks on them or whatever nonsense there was. This was a pandemic. I mean, everybody and their mother that has half a brain in their head knows that droplets within a 10 feet distance would give you that disease and could potentially kill you.
Decimated my profession.
Yeah.
I mean,
and I know two people.
Closed down my profession.
I know two people personally that died.
I know people that died
of COVID.
I know that people had really bad, long-lasting.
And people that have long COVID now that are still suffering.
And I think
of memory. What do they call that? They call it COVID fog. I think it's called.
Yeah.
Loss of taste, things like that. Why do you think that people are still denying the fact that we had a pandemic and blaming the governor on top of it?
I think there were people who were just so angry that he shut down businesses, and people lost their livelihoods. And I'm sorry, but I think life comes before livelihood, and I really feel bad. But I think the government did a good job of trying to compensate people for lost business, and that's all we could do. We have to keep people alive, or you don't have business either. If you don't, first you have to. The first duty is to keep people alive and keep them from getting sick. And I was so grateful that I was able to get, because I'm old, So I got vaxxed and boosted, and I did get COVID, but I was able to get the Paxlovid, and I recovered really quickly. And I thought, well, at least I didn't get it when none of that was available, because I know people who died, and I know people who got really sick.
Yeah, because Omicron was milder than the original, the Alpha, and I think it was Delta. Those two were killing people like crazy.
And they had nothing to combat it. They had no vaccines. They had no drugs for it initially. And I think, to blame Fauci or to blame Walz, to point the blame at the people who tried to keep people alive. Again, I go back to something about the American psyche where we've lost touch with compassion. And
Yeah, I mean, we obviously went through 4 years of someone who perpetually called us out, and the thing is, they're saying Biden is calling them out. He's not calling every Republican out. He's calling people who deny the election, who think the insurrection was just fine. And if you watched, there's been so many specials on the news lately about the insurrection, and leading up to what happened. It's scary. He could have literally stole this election and nullified the votes of millions and millions of people, and he would have been the only president in history to win 2 terms when not winning the popular vote either time.
Yeah, it scares me.
Yeah.
It's frightening to me.
Democracy is definitely on a seesaw right now. It's like, what are we
agree.
going to do? And it really depends on November. I really encourage everybody listening to this show, please get people to vote. Go out there and door knock. Do whatever you have to do. I remember in the 2020 election, you and I were doing some phone banking,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
we were talking on the phone about it. And you had a few rough spots there, but in the end, didn't you feel rewarded about what you did?
Yeah, always feel good about it. I've done that for a long time, and I feel like we got to do what we can try to do anyway. And I'm really glad you're doing this, because I think it brings an awareness. We don't have time to be exhausted.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's a good way to put it.
We might be exhausted, but we don't have that luxury. I mean, we're still in a rough spot.
Yeah. And the thing about doing this, and I don't know if I've even said this on the air, but I do it for society. I don't want to force anybody to believe like me, because that's never going to happen, and that's not my goal. But my goal is 2 things. I want democracy, and I want civil rights for all, not one or the other, everybody. And if you get those 2 things, all the other policies that like whether you want taxes or no taxes, or you want healthcare, you don't want, that's a debate. That's a healthy debate. But these 2 essential things, democracy and civil rights, to me are the 2 voting rights, gay rights, African American rights, the way they're treating these migrants in these southern states, like animals, putting them on a bus and sending them somewhere and just dumping them off. I mean, it's dehumanizing to me.
Dehumanizing.
I mean, and to call yourself a Christian, you should be ashamed of yourself. In my book, the way I look at it. So yeah, I mean, those are my 2 issues, and I'm doing this for that reason. I want not only people to know. The motto of the show is to know what Minnesotans are thinking, and you're a Minnesotan, and you're telling everybody what you're thinking, and I basically tell them what I'm thinking too, but I like to know different views of issues, and people are on the same page as me that are on the show, because nobody wants to see anybody mistreated.
I agree.
No, nobody. You're a human being. I'm a human being. The fact I can get married was only one extra vote on the Supreme Court did that.
It wouldn't happen now, would it?
Oh my God, that's my big fear, and that's going to be a question that I'm going to be coming up with soon. Let's do some more questions really quick before
Sure.
the show's
Yeah.
over. One of my biggest concerns is again the insurrection on January 6th, talking about the riots that occurred and the attack on the Capitol. Do you think we can ever recover from the spreading of the big lie and get back to respecting American institutions again? Do you think that'll ever happen at this point?
Well, I think a lot hinges on the next election, because, if the Republicans take control of the House, those investigations will be shut down.
Oh, yeah.
And with
they said they would do it.
The
yeah.
Justice Department investigation is now stalled, which was Trump's whole idea in getting John Deere, because they figured out that he's slow. That's the thing, that he's very, very methodical.
And the
slow.
judge was
So
picked
it's all about stalling.
And the judge that's ruling on this case is one of his. So he picked her.
The investigations have shown what collusion there was between the administration and the people who planned this insurrection. I think that has to be dealt with so firmly that people will be discouraged from trying anything like that again. Again, I go back to this Holocaust stuff. Hitler went to jail for only a few months and came back and, initiated this reign of terror that destroyed the country.
Sounds like we're repeating. I hope not. But
there's very many parallels. There's so many parallels between that situation and this, and preying on people's fears and economic insecurity. I think that's all part of what fuels this resurgence of kind of right-wing freak show stuff.
And
I
they
mean,
love
it's
him. I think, I don't know what it is, because they don't really, he hasn't done a thing for them in 4 years, except cut taxes for the rich. And most of these people that follow him don't have a pot to piss in or a window to throw it out of.
Well,
And-
there's that. There's also people with money that support him.
Yeah.
Plenty. There's plenty.
Yeah. Well, they're the people, it's kind of like, if you do this, it's going to save America, kind of thing. And they have a station, that just spews all of this. So yes, you're right. There are rich people and corporations, certain corporations, not all, who would love to have these people think that way, so they'll vote that way, even though it's totally against their better interests. And it's propaganda, basically.
And I think people have more in common than they want to acknowledge. I think, the Republicans in Minnesota, anyway, have successfully, I think, created a rural-urban divide where people aren't even thinking about what the things they have in common, like a need for and good education, good schools, safety, access to technology. I mean, all those things, everybody needs that. But they've created this wedge between rural and urban Minnesotans, which I think is really destructive and preys upon people's fears.
Yeah, and I talked about that on one of my shows. I said, because the DFL has the word farm in it, farm labor, and why are the the rural people up there, I like to call them up there, some down there too, supporting Republicans who are not supportive of farmers?
Well, I think that somehow they were convinced that the Republicans did support farmers, and maybe in some instances I think they did. But the guy who got farmers represented in the big bill that passed in Trump's administration was Colin Peterson. And what did they do? They voted him out of office. It's I don't want to talk about. I know these are my people, and I know that they don't want to be looked down on, and they shouldn't be looked down on because they're hardworking, solid, good people, and somehow.
But they were led down the wrong path.
They
don't you think?
They were led down the wrong
I don't
path.
think it's their fault either. I think it's unfortunate. You're right. I think you hit the nail on the head. I don't think it's their fault at all. I just think they heard the echo chamber of,
It's unrelenting.
Yeah.
It's unrelenting.
Where they're going to get, if you vote Democrat, this is going to happen to you, and that's going to happen to you, and then all these people are going to move in, and there's going to be crime, and they're going to be killing people, and it's just a lot of BS, and I think people are afraid. I think fear is a huge motivator. Oh my goodness! I think the Republicans are amazing at scaring people. They're the best. We can't. For some reason, we can't do that, but they are really, really good at it.
And I watch Fox News once in a while.
Oh yeah, I do too.
Because I want to know what's going on.
Yep.
And
I admit it, I do.
I want to know what's going on, and they're really clever. I got to say.
Yes. Well, I have two Minnesota questions coming
Yeah.
up really quick, if you can briefly just touch upon them. As you know, the nurses in Minnesota went on strike, and not because they wanted more money, but because they're being overworked, and they are concerned that patients are not getting the appropriate care they need. Okay? They're more worried about us, basically.
Yeah.
Do you think misinformation during the COVID pandemic has discouraged people from either entering the field to become a nurse, or do you think it's just because they don't feel supported?
I think I have a whole lot of nieces and nephews in the medical profession.
What have they said to you?
I haven't talked to them about this particular strike situation. I don't know about that. But they have talked to me about how difficult the last few years have been and how exhausting it's been and how many people are leaving and the hours that they're asked to work. And heck, we owe them our lives.
Yeah, without nurses.
The whole medical community, if we're living today, the scientific, the researchers, and the healthcare system, we are in debt to them. for keeping people alive.
Yes.
And the heroic things they did to keep people alive.
So my message is support our nurses and doctors and give them a big hug when you see them because they are literally saving your life. They're
Right.
literally doing that, and they're worried more about you. They're not asking for money. You don't hear them go, oh, you better pay me more money. It's all about us, and that's what they're striking about. They don't feel supported. They don't feel they have enough help. And that's one of the issues about Minnesota issues. The other one is Scott Jensen, my favorite person in the world. Oh, she's sticking her finger down her throat. The Republican candidate for governor of Minnesota. You know who he is, right? Supposedly a doctor. I don't even want to call him that because it's disgusting. He should lose his license if he's a doctor. Anyway, he said during his primary campaign that he's going to ban abortion care in Minnesota, even in cases of rape and incest. So he's going to force 11-year-old girls who get raped to have to go through the birth, to give birth. Mm-hmm. He's going to force women who get to the 7th month, and the doctor says, if you have this baby, there's a chance you can die, and so will the baby. Or the baby's born malformed, or whatever the case, and it's going to be in terrible pain if it's born. There's a lot of different variables that can happen in the womb, and he's going to take that choice away from the doctor more than the woman, because the woman's the only choice she's making is to go there and say, can you help me? Okay, can you do something? I don't want to have this child for ABC reasons. The doctor is the one that gives the advice, the professional advice. And by taking that advice away from a professional, that's scary to me.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
So, and then he wants to cut funding for public schools, which would result in laying off a lot of teachers and increasing class sizes. And then he's going to cut taxes for the rich and the wealthy like they really need it. What is your opinion of him? Are any of these issues touching you? Like, is this?
I think he's reprehensible. I mean, anybody who would be a vaccine denier and a doctor, a person of science at the same time, I mean, he should have been disbarred right then. He should have, I don't know, what's the equivalent to the AMA says, no, we're ripping your license, you're done. But this flip-flopping on, now he's modified his position on abortion.
Of course he did.
Doesn't that sound like
Because
somebody
it's a
familiar? And I just think, like the places where they've enacted these radical laws, it's already showing up. They have people who have ectopic pregnancies, and they show up at the emergency rooms, and they don't want to do anything till there's infection because they don't want to get sued. Well, you can go from infection to sepsis to death in no time flat. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And these are not rare. I mean, I think of just my family. There's a lot of women in my family. There's, I'm the oldest of 8 and only 2 boys in my family, and a bunch of nieces and nephews. And we've had miscarriages. We've had ectopic pregnancies. We've had complications. I mean, there's been, and we're also producers. We have a lot of kids, but I mean, it's taking away. There's these laws that are being enacted are so radical,
draconian.
Just
absolutely.
I mean, they're refusing to treat people with serious and common infections.
Yeah.
It's not like I'm pro-abortion, but
nobody is.
It's like, how do you legislate it? I don't think you can.
Nobody's pro-abortion. People are.
I don't think it's legislatable because there are so many situations. Pregnancy and childbirth are so complicated. You wouldn't think in 2022 that it would still be a health risk, a life risk for women, but it is. Yeah. There's so much that can go wrong, and I've seen it so much in family and friends, and I think they're men, mostly, not entirely, but men are making these decisions about female bodies and female health I just don't, I can't understand how we can let this happen.
Exactly. And like I said, there are so many different variables that can happen, whether it's, again, rape, incest, health of the mother,
like the little girl in Ohio that crossed a state border, and they were saying that she made this up. They were questioning her. No, they were questioning her till she proved it with a police record or something like that.
Really?
I mean, yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
It's disturbing. The last question before we end the show, briefly, if you can, as you know, I'm a member of the gay community. Yes. That's why I say it out loud and proud at the beginning of my show. I'm fully aware that next on the agenda is taking away the right to marriage equality. Shouldn't every citizen call their representatives and demand they put a bill on the floor codifying marriage equality in the law before the activist Supreme Court takes that right away too? Now, this is an issue very personal to me because I'm married.
Yep.
I'm in a same-sex marriage, and by the stroke of a pen, these 9 people can tell me I'm not married anymore.
And I think you're right. I mean, I think that the bullseye is squarely on the right to marriage. I think that's the thing they'll go for next.
Yeah, because Justice Thomas already said that that's the next thing to do, and I don't really know if we have enough time in this. That's why, again,
To mobilize, yeah.
Well, yeah, because I'm scared because if the House does flip, that's never going to happen. Codifying any gay rights are never going to. They're already demonizing the trans community.
Yep.
What's the definition of a girl? I mean, are they stupid? Are you really stupid? Don't they realize when you're a trans man or a trans woman, especially if you're a trans man, okay, you were biologically born a woman, but you still have those parts. And if you're a trans man, you could still give birth, naturally, because you have the parts. So when you talk about the definition of a girl, that's not that's simplifying it, because a lot of people don't feel comfortable in the body that God created them in, and they have a dysphoria about their image. It's like looking in the mirror and saying, "Ugh, that's not me," and it affects you psychologically. And these people need to be respected, and they need to be told that they are valid. They are part of society. This is who they are. And
It comes back down to compassion. I'm telling you,
again,
Philip.
it's compassion. It's all about compassion and
Empathy.
So,
that's what,
yes, empathy.
we're trained in that from the time we're little kids. Where does it, where does it go away when you talk about difference? What is that?
Well, to end the show here before we say goodbye, I just want everybody out there to understand my mission here. I want everyone, regardless of who you are, whether you're Muslim, black, white, gay, straight, trans, Native American, Native Canadian, whatever you are, to understand that you have a right to be equal to everybody else next to you, that lives next to you, that's around you in your society, everyone. And the minute that you say one group can't do this, you can't do that.
Demonize the other. Yep.
What they're doing to African Americans makes me vomit. You can't. They took all these voting areas away in very highly predominantly African American neighborhoods. So they used to have drop boxes all over. I read something about Texas, where they had in Houston, where that's where the population is, Dallas, Texas, and all, Houston. They took boxes away, and so now these people that found it easy to vote will have to either find some sort of way to get to these voting areas to vote. It's just making it more difficult instead of saying, you know what, it worked pretty well last time. Let's just keep it, the way it is.
What was touching to me, though, and positive to me, is remember on Election Day, with all those obstacles, those new obstacles that were put in people's way, with COVID, with people standing in line with kids and with masks, those lines, people stood in lines for an hour to reassert democracy.
And I'm still going to give water to these people.
Democracy.
I don't care what they say. If I'm in Georgia and I see somebody who wants water, I'm going to give it to them. Arrest me.
100%.
Arrest me. Anyway, unfortunately, we have come to the end of the show. And I want to thank you so much,
Thank you,
Dr.
Philip.
Patricia Kent,
Pat.
Pat, for sharing your time with us on the Downright Upright Show. And to our listeners, thank you for spending time with us today. And please stay tuned for more of the Downright Upright Show in the future. And don't forget to volunteer, or at the very least, vote this November. That's the least you can do. Our state and our country depend on it. Right, Pat?
100%.
Okie dokie. Goodbye for now, and thank you for tuning in.
Bye, dear.